Jurassic Park 3. Welcome back to the jungle. 8 years after the events of Jurassic Park and 4 years after the events of The Lost World, the film returns to Isla Sorna with a whole new adventure and new dinosaurs that were illegally created. Yep, that's right. After the events of The Lost World, all cloning operations of dinosaurs had ceased. However, Dr. Wu, who's responsible for creating the dinosaurs in the original film, snuck in to the island along with some research assistants and established a lab where they illegally created new dinosaurs, which would have been cool. However, the well-established ecosystem of the original dinosaur was in jeopardy and eventually collapsed, which I'll discuss later in this video. While I do in fact enjoy the film, there were a few issues that I had with it. One of them was that it was not directed by Steven Spielberg. His reasoning was because he was so busy with other projects that the thought of making a third Jurassic Park film would have been a headache. Instead, it was directed by Joe Johnston. While he did great, but filming turned out to be a bit of a disaster. The characters involved Dr. Grant, Billy, Mr. and Mrs. Kirby, Udusky, a pilot, and Cooper, who were stranded on an island after crashing the airplane after a Spinosaurus attacked and devoured Cooper upon landing on the island under the false pretense that the Kirbys were wealthy and will fund Dr. Grant's dig site if they will allow him to give them a tour around Isla Sorna and would not land, but this proven to be false as they were not wealthy and they were in fact were looking for their son. Their hopes was that Dr. Alan Grant would help them find their son as they believed he was on the island before. However, it was later revealed that Dr. Alan Grant was actually on Isla Nublar, not Sorna, though not mentioned directly in the film, but as someone who has watched the franchise, it was Dr. Ian Malcolm who was on the island before, and it would have made a lot more sense if they tracked him down instead and brought him to the island. But then again, Ian Malcolm would have been hesitant to step foot on the island, especially after his experience on the island, and Dr. Alan Grant was feeling the same way, even though he had a horrific experience on Isla Nublar. You can imagine how he felt about going to Isla Sorna. So either way, the Kirbys would not have convinced either of them without pretending to be wealthy and giving them loads of money, which turned out to be bogus. Stranded on the island, the Kirbys, Udusky, Billy, and Dr. Alan Grant had to face various challenges, including dinosaurs that we can recognize from the original films and a whole new breed of dinosaurs, which were of course bred illegally as cloning operation had ceased after the events of The Lost World, but Dr. Wu decided to be sneaky and created new dinosaurs. Hence the Spinosaurus and of course the new breed of velociraptors, which were very different than the ones in the previous film. And if you look closely, they look like the early version of Blue from Jurassic World. But don't let me spoil it. Dr. Alan Grant was face to face with the very creatures that he once loved and now feared, but in a whole new different level. These species of velociraptors were faster and smarter and even can communicate with one another. As Dr. Grant and his friend trekked through the island, encountering dinosaurs and evading the Spinosaurus, which stalked them throughout the film, they stumbled upon a velociraptor nest, which they intend to leave alone. However, Billy secretly stole the eggs in hopes to selling and funding the dig site as the funding had run out. But, however, this had been proven to be a horrible mistake, as the velociraptors began stalking and hunting and following the group and intend to hunt and eat them in order to retrieve the eggs. This was later revealed when Billy showed Dr. Grant the eggs while being trapped at the aviary where the pterodactyls lived, which infuriated Dr. Grant. And now they can only hope that when the velociraptors catches them, they'll still have the eggs, because if not, it'll probably be worse. Speaking of pterodactyls, did you know in The Lost World, the pterodactyl only got one shot at the end of the film? That is because that Steven Spielberg intended to have pterodactyls in The Lost World, but due to budget, he can only do it for a brief moment. When Joe Jonathan took over, that's when he decided that it's time the pterodactyl gets the spotlight that they deserve. And they did. Hence, the aviary and the iconic scene where Eric was captured by the mama pterodactyl to be fed to her babies, and the attack that Billy received by other pterodactyls, and a whole new adventure of terror and survival, all centered in one aviary. And come to think of it, how on earth did the pterodactyls survive in an enclosed space? Surely they had to have some type of food source, otherwise they would have starved. Was it probably cannibalism that helped? Or maybe there was an abundant supply of fish that they fed on? We may never know. But judging by the skeleton remains, they probably also fed on any humans that came in. Possibly the scientists that were studying the pterodactyls. Who knows? The dinosaurs that we see throughout the film, such as the new species of velociraptors, possibly the pterodactyls, and the Spinosaurus, were created in this laboratory, which many would believe that this was the workers' village, but this is a very different facility. Although people said that the car with the broken glass was the same one Ian Malcolm hidden while avoiding the velociraptors. But this was an entirely different facility, as many claimed was on a different part of the island, which caused a little bit of an issue, which I will discuss later. There, as Dr. Grant and his friend were exploring the facility, they encountered one of the velociraptors, which gave them chase. Eric was eventually found and reunited with his parents, which now they made their mission to get off the island. Speaking of the Spinosaurus was created as a potential hybrid and a fierce hunter, hence the battle between the Spinosaurus and the T-Rex, which eventually the Spinosaurus won and became the main protagonist throughout the film. The film had its issues, as the script had to be written and rewritten while filming, hence why some of the scenes can be confusing and why the terrain on Isla Sorna is different. That is because originally it was supposed to be Site C, but they changed it to Isla Sorna instead, and had to get creative and said that this is on a different part of the island, which would make more sense if it was a different island, but I guess it's okay to do it on the same island. Dr. Grant and his friends managed to get rid of the Spinosaurus by scaring it with fire, and it never bothered them again. Eventually, the eggs were returned to the Velociraptor family, and they decided to leave them alone in peace. They escaped the island, and they all lived happily ever after. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and comment your favorite dinosaurs. And until next time, stay classy, and I'll see you all in the next video.